Stygian Call, one of a few uniques in the game that can enable a whole different playstyle. Is it worth building though? This video is going to be quite long, so I'll give you a too long didn't watch now. Click the like button if you appreciate this. Stygian Call Lich is a build that is very easy to set up and it only needs one unique item to get going. It can easily slay Aberoth and make it past 500 corruption, but at even higher corruption levels it doesn't scale particularly well. Let's now go a bit in detail about this build. What Stygian Call does is turning Drain Life into a Fire and Forget skill that will follow us around shooting beams of doom. The build can be set up for regular damage, and in theory we could use any of the 3 Acolyte Masteries, as we just need a few points in the Lich tree to unlock Drain Life. During patch 1.0 I made it to 1k corruption with a Warlock, and I've recently done it with a Necromancer as well, so for this build I went with the Lich, and rather than direct damage I opted for Poison. While I would usually start with skills and passives, there is an important detail to mention about Stygian Coil. The last 2 lines of its wall of text show that the frequency and damage of the beam scale with our mana and intelligence. This means that useful prefixes for us are going to be stats like intelligence, mana, damage over time, poison damage, mana regeneration and casting speed. We will talk about the importance of casting speed when we start discussing skills. Outside of a call, there isn't a single unique item that is required for the build to work. A couple of items that I would highly recommend targeting are the Tongue Ring and a Font of Erased. The Tongue Ring has very useful stats for this build, it's easy to find, and getting one with some legendary potential shouldn't take long. If you are using Runes of Ascendance on rings, you will be picking up some fonts as well. And while RNG is involved, the base HP and mana percentages are both very useful for this character. So if you could snipe some good mods while leveling up, you could end up with an excellent item that will carry you in the endgame. I'm using a few uniques in my build that this Lich has inherited from my other characters. I have an Omni with a good roll, the new hat from the Harbingers, a Twisted Heart with some legendary potential, but none of these items are as important as, say, an Exsanguinous for a world build. What's important is getting your resistances and crit avoidance or reduction to a good point, then pump the damage output. The passive stalk is going to be very quick. I've basically picked every node with intelligence, mana and poison synergy. There isn't any particular secret illegal tech, so you can just refer to the link to the last Epoch tools. Skills require a slightly deeper look though. Drain Life, Aspect of Death and Reaper Form are a must for a build like this. They all have a lot of poison related nodes, and they provide a core of good damage, sustain and mobility. Hour of Decay is the first skill that comes to mind when thinking about a Poison Lich, and it's what I used for most of the campaign and early Monolith grind. The problems start to show up at higher corruption. Hour of Decay has a fairly short range, and when you get to the point where a few hits can send us back to town, you don't want to stay too close to the mobs. That's when Wandering Spirits started to become more valuable. The spirits have more range, they last for quite some time, and Drain Life can extend their duration. It's just another Fire and Forget skill that helps the build achieve its goal of applying poison while kiting around. Rip Blood seems odd, but it has a very important purpose. Remember when I mentioned casting speed as an important stat for this build? Casting Rip Blood at the rate of fire of a vodka-fueled AK-47, we can generate a lot of mana to keep our total close to the max, increasing the damage of our Beam of Doom. We can also apply poison on a hit, so the more often we need, the better it is. Playing this build is fairly simple. You enter Reaper Form, you activate the Death Seal, you cast the Spirits and then you activate Drain Life. You use Rip Blood against enemies as a way to increase damage and recover mana, rinse and repeat when cooldowns are back. The early and late game experiences vary significantly though. You will see it later in the Monolith showcase. While in the early game you can jump from pack to pack of enemies and let them implode with your poison, when you get to a point where every pack of enemies can kill you, you have to start doing some kiting around. Reaper Form gives us a second life, sort of, but it has a painfully long cooldown. This Lich build can kill every boss in the game and reach fairly high corruption levels, but playing it right after my Wraithlord build clearly showed me the main weakness of this setup. When we play as a Necromancer, our only goal is of staying alive, while the Wraithlord clears the screen. The Wraithlord itself is a magnet and will draw the attention of enemies while he's shooting his own Beam of Doom. We can resummon it at will, and we can even summon it at the edge of the screen to shoot at stuff that is off-screen. With this Lich build, we are essentially the Wraith Lord. We walk around in Reaper form while we shoot beams of doom. The main issue is that now everything is going after us all the time. Although this build has many ways to reduce incoming damage and self-sustain, eventually you get to the point where you are playing a Souls game, everything is going to be fine, and after a minor mistake you get one shot. Another issue is the way the beam itself works. It shoots and applies poison to one enemy at a time. It does it at a very high frequency, but if the screen is full of enemies, then not all of them will be hit consistently, reducing the amount of poison stacks on them. It works great against a single enemy, as all the poison is focused on it, but as I was going up in corruption I noticed that I was struggling way more with a full screen of high HP enemies than with a timeline boss or even Aberoth. While my gear has still room for improvement, I'm having a much easier and safer time with my Wraith Lord at 1k corruption compared to this Lich, although against a single boss the two are very comparable. This build feels like it has a very high floor but a low ceiling. It's cheap to put together with only one unique item being required, the damage output is solid, and it can clear all content in the game, while also reaching fairly high corruption. Once the enemies start to come in larger packs, carry a bigger HP pool and dish out significantly more damage, then it feels like we're hitting a wall that we can only go through via slow, careful gameplay, rather than gear upgrades or the use of different abilities. And if someone tells you, oh, it's a build that takes a lot of skill then, no, kiting a pack of mobs for 1 minute in an ARPG it's not skill, it's death. If you found a Stygian coil and you've always been curious to see how it works, you can definitely give it a try. You have to grind a few levels before everything starts working together, but it's a cool and unique build that doesn't require crazy investment.